Welcome to the Lawless Astrology channel. I am Dabney Lawless. I am an evolutionary astrologer and I studied with the renowned Steven Forrest for over 20 years. And if you have found this channel, you know that we look at how we can take the cosmos and utilize that energy down here to live a more conscious and peaceful life. And I'm super excited today because I have Celeste Brooks with me. And Celeste is a very accomplished astrologer. She's been featured on the Astrology Hub, which I know anyone who's into astrology goes to the Astrology Hub. She has her own YouTube channel, which I will post information about below. And also she is going to be leading a track at OPA, which is the Organization of Professional Astrologers. And I'm going to put all the information about that below, but she really focuses on the moon and moon mastery. And I love her Instagram channel. So definitely look in the description, check Celeste out because she's awesome. But I know how my kitty is going to say hi a lot during this today. So my kitty is
so
feisty.
appropriate.
My kitty is very feisty. So everyone is going to be very excited because we are talking today about the United States of America politics and the astrology of what is happening, because there's a lot been happening in the past 3 weeks. From a complete meltdown at a debate to an assassination attempt to picking VPs to suddenly having a new candidate. So believe it or not, that's only been about 3 weeks. So a lot going on. And so we're going to look at all that stuff. So stick around and let's see what Celeste has to say.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Dabney. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I loved it that I don't know if you felt the same way. Oh no, I know you did because I saw it on your Instagram. So I'm not a predictive astrologer. I'm an evolutionary astrologer. I look mostly at the nodes. I, take Pluto very seriously, but I'm not predictive. But we can't help ourselves sometimes. And, I knew that if Joe Biden was going to be stepping down, it was going to be on that Capricorn full moon. And, right there with Pluto and everything. And you were one of the only astrologers that also had you came out publicly. I just told my husband, you came out publicly and you said, if it's going to happen, I say it's in the next 2 days. So do you want to talk a little bit about that to kick us off?
Yeah, well, let me set the framework that I think we need to start with around all of this energy that we're under this year. So there's two big things. Was the solar eclipse on April 8th at 19 degrees of Aries, and it was conjunct the Chiron of the United States. Chiron, the wounded healer. And so I feel like with this energy, we can go one way or the other. But what was interesting, it was seen across the United States. And so it meant that this was going to be an important year of change for us. And at that solar, it was right before the April 20th Jupiter-Uranus conjunction. And Uranus rules elections because you can think about it. When people are voting, they're normally voting for because it's something they want to change. And what Uranus does also is it can flip things around upside down, bring sudden breaks, shocks, and all of that kind of stuff. In the outer space, it spins on its side and backwards. And Jupiter makes things bigger and all across the world. This is a year of the most elections ever. And we can see like in France, in South Africa, in England, like the old guard kind of is getting a run for their money, even if they're not totally tossed out. In Mexico, they have the first female president as the sun and Venus were coming together. Yes, they did. So I just wanted to bring that. There's this big overarching theme that this is a big year for the United States. It's we're having a Chiron return, so there's this real energy of, and as well as our Pluto return. So there's this changing energy and this Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, which hit Joe Biden opposite his 12th house Mercury. And Mercury rules your thought processes, how you communicate. for him specifically, because he has a Virgo midheaven, it also rules his career. So this Uranus that throws things up, sprints them upside down, sudden breaks, and in a big way, Jupiter was opposite his career point on April planet on
Like
April
during the eclipse.
20th
Yeah. Well,
during eclipse season.
I think that the symbolism was incredible. And it was really interesting how, let me first just say that I have so much respect for Joe Biden. So, I don't really hide it on this channel that, I am more progressive and liberal. And the reality is, I think he was exactly what we needed at the time. But I was really concerned with the symbolism with Pluto and going into Aquarius from Capricorn. And this is something I've talked on Susan Lynn's channel. And it was also something I've talked with Ronnie Pontiac about, is that the problem with Pluto in Capricorn has to do with on the low side, kind of like not letting go, kind of like holding on for dear life, not, letting your ego getting in the way. And the high, and so, and that also it rules people who are older. And so the good side, and Joe Biden stepped in and he demonstrated the good side, which is like really being the elder statesman and saying like, you know what, it is time to pass the torch. And it is not that he is going away or that it was not a good leader. It was just the symbolism was, it was time for him to be the mentor and pass the torch to the next generation so he could secure his legacy. I really think that on that day, what he did was the high side of Pluto and Capricorn. And I think it secured his legacy. And it was amazing how there was just this like immediate influx of energy and love for both Joe Biden and Kamala Harris on that day.
Yeah, and it's really like the other big transit I want to talk about was Mars and Uranus came together and activated that Jupiter-Uranus conjunction, and they met at 26 Taurus, which is on a fixed star Algol, and that's the beheading star. And in Joe Biden's chart and his natal promise, he has his Sun conjunct Venus in Scorpio in the 12th house. And that's hidden enemies, it's endings, and it's in his natal promise that his allies could like push him to step down. And that Mars-Uranus conjunction was exactly opposite him. So the night of the debate, after we saw that, it happened 2 days before Saturn was stationing retrograde. And it was such a great example of the astrology and what astrology means when a planet stations. It like is a branding iron, and it's stationed on his IC, and that's a point opposite your midheaven. So he's in this competition, this fight for the president, this big presidency, this big election, and then the planet of failure, the planet of chronic illnesses, stationed right around there. And so we saw it like pulled back the veil, and we saw that his vitality was not what is needed to lead the nation, but he didn't want to step down. He and Donald Trump have something very similar. They both have their sons, their identity, their ego, their essence, in a trine with Jupiter. And that can be a big ego. You got to have a big ego to even think you can be president.
Yeah, it's what got him here to begin with, right?
And Scorpio's a sign of power, and he had fought so hard to be president. Okay, so anyway, that's the past. He stepped down, but the thing was that was Mars and Taurus, and it was like plodding along, and people were getting so depressed. Mars is in detriment in Taurus, and then last Saturday, Mars went into Gemini, and the next day, Gemini, mutable air, applying towards Jupiter, which expands things. And the next day he steps down. And the energy and the excitement went through the roof. It was such a great example of seeing how these transits, how the energy changes. So Mars comes out of its detriment. Mars rules energy, drive, enthusiasm. Mars strives, Mars achieves, Mars competes, and now we have a competition. Yes, we
Oh, we
do.
have a competition, and that is for sure. And what is so funny too is like, I think everyone was so nervous about what would happen. It all just coalesced so quickly, which was really interesting. And I'm really obviously I'm happy, but from an astrological standpoint, I think one of the things that we can talk about is the actual election day. And I don't want to give too much energy to the person that used to be president, but I will say that he had better transits than Joe Biden. And that was a little scary and discouraging to me. And so I was really pulling for him to step aside, not so much that I didn't appreciate him or like him. It's just I really didn't feel that he was able to run the kind of high energy, offensive campaign that we need right now, especially with the symbolism of actual election day. So what do you
Yes.
want to look at? Do you want to look at the election day chart, or do you want to look at Kamala's
Let's
chart?
start with Kamala first.
Okay. All right.
Let's talk about her big three and some key things about her chart. She's a sun in Libra, and Libra is a sign that rules justice, rules fairness. It can see both sides of the situation. Sometimes Libras get accused of being two-faced because maybe they don't pick sides because they can see each other's points. They're wonderful advocates, great lawyers on the high road. There's also like low, every sign has a high road and a low road. Like a high road, Libra is a humane sign. So the humane signs are the air signs, Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. Air communicates, air connects. Libra energy is elegant and sociable, and 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 what else was I going to say about it? Yeah.
Well, they know how to be a good diplomat. So like when I see someone with a Libra, they have kind of that, they're often underestimated for their ability to see the dynamics, the power dynamics of a group. And they can kind of, they can help, be that mediator and bring people together to come on their side, if I'm thinking politically at least.
Yes, yes, yeah, yeah. But she also has her moon in Aries. Aries is the warrior. Aries competes. Aries is a fire cardinal sign. It initiates. Like she has so much initiating energy. This sun in Libra, this moon in Aries, born at a full moon. When people are born at full moons, like they have to learn how to, because it's an opposite. And you can see her sun and moon are exactly opposite. So she was born on a full moon. So emotionally, like she has this internal energy, probably to constantly like achieve in a group situation because her moon is in the 11th house. She is a fighter. She was a prosecutor. So there's this balance that she probably as a child needed to figure out. How do I get my own way, Aries, in a group setting, the 11th house? Well, how do I do it? I use the sun in Libra by being persuasive, diplomatic, advocating for the group and whatnot. So yeah, you can really feel that tension and that she's mastered it by how far she's been able to climb up. What else would you say about a moon in Aries?
I would say that she's the warrior, right? And what I love is it's in the 11th house, which rules social media. And what is so stunning is how much her campaign just exploded on social media so quickly. It was kind of like, this was like she had this whole army behind her the second it was announced, and that really like kind of then cleared the way, that energy cleared the way for people to get on board and get behind her. It was sort of like when I wish YouTube would let us play copyrighted music, because that new Brat song that she's taking total ownership of, I mean, that to me is very smart. Moon in Aries in the 11th house, but it's also very, like you said, like it works so nicely with that sun in Libra conjunct Mercury in Scorpio. It's like she has the ability to speak the hard truths, but
Mhm.
she can say it in a way like, people keep talking about her laugh and like, oh, she cackles and this and that. But that laugh, that happiness, that levity is like, it's today she put out a statement that was talked about, the former guy calling into Fox News and like saying just crazy stuff like he always does. And like, she was like, he's so weird. And then that exploded all over social media today, being like, why are you so weird? Why are you so weird? Right. So that to me was that like bringing people together in a way that was kind of funny. It wasn't aggressive, it wasn't threatening. But then here, like underneath it all is like this warrior, this fighter who's like not gonna let her guard down. So
Yeah, her social media game is so on point. Like she has not had a misstep yet.
yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, and
it's
it's
just,
early, we know, and
it's
we're
very
glad.
early. We'll
Yeah,
talk about that. It's
yeah.
early. Yeah. And there's
Yeah,
things, transits coming up that will be challenging for her because
yeah.
she's a
So
Gemini rising.
you go,
And
Gemini
so
rising.
Gemini is mutable air. It could be the trickster. There's there's sociability, there's ability to like say things in short declarative sentences and just get your point across quickly and concisely. And she talked about like when she gave her speech where she said, I know the type. I forget the exactly what she said, but she talked about how she prosecuted predators and scam artists.
Fraudsters. Yep.
And then she said, I know the type. And boop, boop, boop. Like so like boop, boop, boop. And her Mercury in Scorpio, she can like have that penetrating Scorpion energy with what she says that just cuts to the quick. Yeah, and Jupiter right now is in Gemini and Mars is in Gemini. So this is giving her energy, enthusiasm, and the fighting spirit to take it to the competition. Now, as a Gemini, right? Oh, like what else would you say about Gemini
Well, what
before?
I mean, I guess in this context, what I think is
Yeah.
interesting is, I think this is what we need right now is this Gemini energy, especially with Jupiter and Gemini, because Gemini is very charismatic.
Mhm.
And the former guy has, I don't personally see it, but I see how others would see charisma, right? He can tell funny jokes that people laugh at. He used to be on TV. So I think that that was one of the things that we've been lacking a little bit is charisma. Like we've had, reliability. And that is what we needed coming out of COVID. We needed someone that we could trust, that was calm, that was stable, that, all of those kind of hallmarks of the things that we've been experiencing. But, right now, the moment with the change of all of the different outer planets and like all the kind of electric buzzing and what we see actually in the election day chart itself, we need someone who's a fighter and who has charisma and can kind of capture the attention of the media in a way that unfortunately Joe Biden, he wasn't able to work with the media, and the media has gone haywire. And so, I think she's going to be able to play the media game a little bit better with that Gemini rising and her Gemini North node.
Yes, well, the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction on April 20th was at 21 degrees of Taurus, squaring her Leo Mars at 21 degrees of Leo in her third house of communication. And both her and Trump have Leo energy. Leo energy has the ability to get attention. Trump is a Leo rising, and he has Mars in Leo too. Ability to garner attention and all eyes on me kind of thing. So now there is a real competitor in the race. And one thing that's we nearly need to look at for both her and Trump, because Trump is a Gemini, and she's a Gemini rising. And so Jupiter's in his 10th house and it's coming to her first house. Now, Mercury, the planet of communication, is going to go retrograde from August 4th through August 28th. And this will be a time where, because it rules her ascendant, it rules her whole chart. it'll be interesting to see how this shows up. We know they're going to be dredging all kinds of stuff and quotes and pictures and things about her. They've had decided that they're going to try to paint her as a whore, which I think go for it. It will help her because Uranus is conjunct Algol. Algol has Medusa imagery. It has Lilith imagery. Lilith, it's Algol is a fixed star at 26 Taurus, and Uranus is going to be conjuncted through the election. It is women, Lilith energy. Lilith was Adam's first wife who would not be subservient and lay beneath him, and she was kicked out of the Garden of Eden, or left it on our own accord, whatever. It doesn't matter. What matters is the attacks against women are going to benefit her. I bet every time they do it, she'll get another 100 people signing up to vote and willing to stand in line an extra 10 minutes in order to vote. So bring it. And it's the childless cat lady is a Lilith archetype. And they've got J.D. Vance going off about miserable childless cat ladies. And I think that's going to give her, that's going to bring a lot, that's going to help is something I'm thinking about.
Absolutely. I would definitely concur with you. And when we look at the transit chart, I want to bring that up because I do want to talk about the fact that we are going to see, and this isn't necessarily astrology, this is just common sense. We're going to see the misogyny, we're going to see the racism, we're already seeing it.
Oh, yeah.
But I think to your point, this is where the astrology comes in my view. I really think that Pluto in Aquarius is like, okay, that is not where we're headed. We're headed to a complete revolution for people, the underdog, the power to the people. So,
or power over the people. It can go either way.
it can go either way. So
That's why it's so important to be engaged and realize we are on the brink of a precipice where, like, you can see it around the world where authoritarian type leaders are potentially going to be rising, or there'll be more
power to the people in
equality or more
democracy,
power to the people.
right?
Yeah.
So one
I
thing
want to I want to say something more about
before,
Mercury retrograde. Yeah.
go for it.
Yes. So it's going to be going back into her third house of communication, and it's going to station to go direct on her Mars and Leo. And so we really need to, okay, Mars rules her 11th house and her sixth house. So in the collective and the work she's doing, I'm really interested. I think it's really important. Like we'll be looking to see her communication. Hopefully there won't be any communication missteps. Hopefully it'll just be, them dredging up stuff from the past.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I think it's going to be a battle. I don't think like we can rest on our laurels.
Oh
I
yeah.
do have so much optimism with the energy. It just really feels like someone threw the windows open and fresh air came in and everybody just said, I want a piece of that. And what's really cool to me too is in her natal chart,
Yeah.
we've got Saturn right on her midheaven. And Saturn is a leader and it's in the sign of Aquarius. So here we've got somebody who is just sort of a natural born leader and a fighter for the underdog. So, she's somebody who is going to meet this moment where we have Pluto at 29 Aquarius, right? She's got that sort of, 29 Capricorn going into Aquarius. Like when going into Aquarius, we've got this energy that's going to, I think, really kind of embolden, from I don't do whole sign, but if you did whole sign, that's really like powerhouse right there, Pluto, Saturn. And just in general, just having Saturn on her midheaven, it's like somebody who can take charge during a war. So.
Yeah.
Anything else on her chart before I kind of open up the transits?
Well, I want to say so now until the election, Uranus is going to go to 27 degrees and then of Taurus and then back to 25. Yeah. So Uranus is squaring her Saturn. Yeah. So this
Really
like
activating change,
Mhm.
inspiration, lightning, like all of a sudden, like one day she's in the background and hidden, and the next day she's front and center, and that just happened overnight. Very Uranus.
Yeah, and Trump's Mars is at 26 Leo, and his his ascendant's at 29 Leo. So her Saturn is opposite that. So she's like blocking. Saturn's stronger than Mars. It's a further out there.
Okay, so this is election day on the outer ring, and then this
Hmm.
is Kamala on the inner ring. So we
Hmm.
can sort of start to, see what are some of the things that are going to be happening for her on election day and what are some of the themes. So do you want to start that off or?
Yeah, so Jupiter, the planet of expansion, awards, success, is on conjunct her ascendant, and it's there's something called the 5 degree rule. So it's at 20, her ascendant's at 24. So essentially, Jupiter, a planet of success and abundance, is on in awards, is on her ascendant, meaning her, how we're seeing her in the collective, her physical body, her identity, essentially. Or I shouldn't say identity, the way
Yeah, no, I mean, it's like how she presents herself,
how she
right?
presents herself. That's
Right.
a
Like how we see her, how we know her, not necessarily like how her husband knows her or her, stepkids know her, but
how the
definitely,
public sees her. Yeah.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's definitely her persona. And Jupiter, anytime any planet crosses your ascendant, it really becomes integrated into who you are during that time. And you have so many gifts that you can integrate, whether it's Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, Jupiter, Saturn. You go through a change in your life when a planet crosses the ascendant. And so here we have the planet of good fortune and good luck coming into her, and also confidence, really confidence, coming into her first house of self identity.
Yeah, and it rules her midheaven, her career, because she has Pisces on the midheaven. And I love how it's in a trine with her Saturn. Yeah.
Mhm.
And her sun. So it's won't be till next year till it makes that grand trine in air. But I'm I'm really liking how it is sextile her Mars. Mars rules competition.
Yes.
Mars strives, Mars succeeds, and she's got this real upswing of energy. What would you say about Venus on her descendant?
So I like that both the Venus and the moon on election day are triggering her nodes. I think that's a positive omen. I think that, charisma, it is in the sign of Sagittarius. That has to do with leadership and taking control, taking charge of your emotional well-being and the way that you relate to other people. And so there's something karmic that's going to be taking place that day for her. So that's what I like about this, is that there's kind of like stepping into her destiny on some level. So, and
But
again,
it's Donald
we
Trump
want
has
to,
the same nodes.
I was going to say, I was just going to say, I don't want to look at this in a bubble. So this is what's so interesting was if you really took apples and orange, Donald Trump's chart and Biden's chart, there was kind of a clear winner. With Kamala's chart and Donald Trump's chart on this day, there is not a clear winner. They both have very auspicious things going on for them. So at least we have a fighting chance now, is what I would say.
Yes,
So,
yes.
before, like if I was, predicting, I was concerned and I didn't want to be, out there putting negative energy out into the world. But I had some concerns because it very much looked like Biden was not going to be staying in the White House necessarily. It looked like he was going to be going and enjoying his family and like kind of more internal things.
Yeah, that's Saturn separating. Saturn on his IC is like you're getting ready to move. Saturn
Right.
separates on
Yeah,
December.
he
Yeah.
wasn't like going to be redecorating the rose garden. So,
Yeah.
here we are now. I think they both have strong transits on this day. I never want to underestimate him simply because he does not seem to go away. Like it seems like nothing can ever take him down, no matter what it is. And
He's got his
so,
Saturn bona fide. Mm.
yeah, So
I
he's got a very kind of charmed chart. I don't want to focus too much on him, but I will. I think it's good we bring up the fact that like they're both of their nodes are being triggered by Venus,
Now I
and
like Uranus on her Jupiter because that could be, well, Uranus is expect the unexpected, but like when the two planets they're merging, Jupiter and Uranus merging to me for her could be a big success. Yeah.
so
Like,
what I wrote down was kind of sudden change in fortune, dismantling limitations, energizing her ability to lead. But the wild card is that it's in the 12th house. So that's what's really interesting too, because the 12th house is a collective, right? It's kind of it's not so much society, it's more of like just all of our collective consciousness. So again, there feels like something sort of like destiny going on here.
mhm.
And what's interesting too about her is like there's been perceptions about her that shifted overnight. It was kind of like she was sort of hidden away for the past several years. Really, the only thing written about her were negative things. And then, like, there was this kind of shift in consciousness, a shift in confidence, a shift in like how we see her, almost like a divine intervention. Like, okay, now we're ready to, see this person in a different light.
Yeah, when she first came out as vice president, she made some missteps with, and so that had left this negative pall on her. But now the energy has completely whipped around Uranus. And right now she's got like a power pack on her back right now. She's ready to go all the way up. Now things could change. There's some dates we really need to be aware of, and that the Jupiter Saturn square on August 19th, which is the day of the convention. So it's Jupiter and Gemini.
Do you want
Will
me to
be,
pull that chart up?
yeah, yeah, that sounds
Okay.
good. So this is the day the Democratic National Convention starts. The sun it's a full moon. With see the 27 degrees, sun at 27 degrees of Leo, and a beautiful sextile to her sun and trine with her moon. The moon is actually at the full moon at 27 degrees of uh, of Aquarius on her Saturn, her leadership. Yeah, but this is the day of the Jupiter Saturn square. And so, like, she's going to, and everybody's going to be making the case for her leadership. Yes. And Mars and Jupiter have just met and they're coming to her ascendant. Mars is coming to her ascendant. Yeah.
Wow.
So there's a
That's
lot of,
it's so interesting how she was born under a full moon.
mhm.
He announced under a full moon, and now here, her maybe her, presumptive. I swear to God, everything's been so crazy. I can't predict anything these days, but her presumptive crowning as our official
Yeah.
nominee under the full moon. So that's really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, look at all the 27s. It does feel so karmic.
There's been
Yeah.
so many synchronicities, and
Mhm.
the astrology has been so literal with, Algol and then the assassination attempt on the same day, and then the Algol basically taking Joe Biden out of the running, too. It's
Mhm.
really interesting because it's not something that I think people pay attention to normally, but there's just been such a heightened degree of drama within the
Yes.
past, 6 months about what is going to happen, or I guess mostly
Well,
within.
Uranus on Algol, it's a big deal. Yeah, Algol, the Medusa mythology, Algol's often called the beheading star because Medusa was beheaded, but then her head was used as a weapon against other people by Perseus, but it was protective for Perseus. So, yeah, I feel like that imagery with her and Uranus conjunct Algol, her being a protective energy. And you can think about Jupiter and Venus are associated with fertility. So it's very interesting, like a big thing that will motivate some women and men to go to the polls or people in general is reproductive rights and not being told you have to have children that you're not prepared for, can't afford. whatnot. Yeah, or if there's like a physical problem, like you're going to potentially have a significant health issue if you carry the child to term. Yeah, I think that,
Anything else on that chart, or you want to, can I go up to the election chart?
yeah, sure.
Okay. So let's see. One of the things that really was incredible to me about the election chart, and kind of also I think has a lot of people concerned, is
Yes.
Mars is just coming out of its shadow because it'll have been retrograde. So it's just
Oh,
kind
it
of,
hasn't gone retrograde yet.
oh, it's going to be going retrograde.
December
Thank you.
6th, Mars goes retrograde.
Okay, so it's just warming up to go retrograde. So it's kind of like in this, important phase where, at 0 degrees of Leo and it's opposing Pluto at 29 Capricorn. So that's kind of like this just very, warrior energy. And so I think that's why everyone feels like they've been gearing up for some kind of battle. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I'm concerned about September 1st. And on September 1st, goes retrograde on the same day that Pluto goes back into Capricorn. So there could be some sudden event, some sudden upheaval that like it changes things in this race that we're not sure exactly how it's going to show up. And then I believe it's September 18th, which is the day after the lunar eclipse in Pisces, which the United States had a new moon, a progressed new moon in Pisces on March 25th, the same day as the Libra eclipse. So the United States is in this new cycle. So, in Pisces, where like, yeah, we can become a more compassionate and caring nation or become a religious theocracy. I could just see how we could go either way. But there's something, Uranus is going to square the moon of the United States in September, and the moon rules the people. So there could be something coming out of nowhere that we're not seeing. I'm wondering if it's going to be some kind of event around technology, or we just had that crowdsource thing where all of these things went down. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because the new moon before the election, Mars is opposite Pluto, and that is a really intense energy. Mars at 29 Cancer, 29 is a degree of crisis and decay. Opposite Pluto, is there going to be some kind of outage? Like Mars rules power. Is there some kind of power outage or disruption that's going to affect the election, is one of the things I've been kind of concerned about. Or is it just like people are so emotionally driven to the polls, like Mars and Cancer is that deep, deep emotional intensity, emotional drive. So yeah, and then Mars goes into Leo. Let's
Yeah,
hope there's not
there's
fighting
an
at the polls.
intensity to the chart with, even just the sun, and it, it always takes place in Scorpio because it's the second Tuesday, but just there is a lot of fire. There's a lot of uncertainty. I think, like you said, I think largely around the fact that Pluto is in Capricorn on the anaretic degree, the last degree. And it's just a matter of, it's days away from shifting back into Aquarius, where it will be for the next like 30 years. And
November 19th. So I wonder if that's when we find out who wins, or do we find out right on the day, or like is there some kind of disruption? I think it's there's so much.
well, and
Um,
it's really interesting. I talked in my conversation with Susan Lynn about this, that, it's very, or maybe it was Ronnie, either way, it's very potent when Pluto flips into the next sign, especially for good. And, when it flipped into Capricorn is when we had the complete housing meltdown, right? And the financial crisis. And so a lot of times when it flips in, like it really brings to light what the crisis will be. And so I love what you're saying about technology, because I really think a lot of the corruption that we've seen in politics has been outed through this Pluto and Capricorn. And what we're going to be dealing with for the next 30 years is a lot of the challenges around AI, a lot of the challenges around deep fakes, a lot of the challenges around, like you said, the CrowdStrike thing was just perfect Pluto and Aquarius symbolism of like, oh, then maybe this isn't as great as we thought it was. Like maybe everything isn't as locked down and secure, and maybe this is going to impact us and we have to fix it and figure things out differently. So I think that that's a really, really interesting
Oh, so let me
observation.
give you these dates. So these are
Okay.
dates to look for.
All
So
right. I'm writing them down. I'll put
on
them in the notes.
August 18th, this is the day before the Jupiter Saturn square.
Okay.
September 15th and next May 15th, Uranus in the sky, conjunct Algol is squaring the moon of the United States in our third house of communication, transportation, early childhood education, the post office. Yeah, so we're going to be expecting some unexpected things, and they may be related to technology and technology disruptions.
We're going to be seeing a lot of major changes across the board in whatever we do. You know, I think it's pretty insane. So, are there any other charts you'd like to look at before? I mean, one of
Or
the
it could
things,
just also be like the people are really excited. That's another thing.
well, you know,
Ah,
I mean, I think that I keep saying, I really focus a lot on Pluto and the symbolism of like all the things I've seen so far from the Harris campaign. So far, you know, they've got Beyonce, her freedom song is
yes,
like the campaign
Uranus rules
song.
freedom. So does Jupiter.
Uranus fuels freedom, right? And then in her campaign speeches, she's talking about we're going to take the power back and give the power to the people. That is Pluto and Aquarius, like
Uh,
to a T, you know? So
yeah, she's
it's been a,
Pluto in Aquarius, and Donald Trump is Pluto in Capricorn. The state's going to tell you what you're going to do, what your values are, what your traditions need to be. So there's this tension between the two of them. Now, Pluto's back in Capricorn on the election, but only for a little bit. It's like it's like final bow. We're finding out, we're finishing up the work of Pluto and Capricorn. Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting because you know, being older is not a bad thing. Being an older leader is not a bad thing. But being an older leader at the 29 degree of Capricorn might not be the awesomest thing. So, you know, I look at that and I say, oh, you know, that could be really the final piece of this person who has ruled our lives for a decade, almost a decade now, has been in our consciousness, bringing the shadow to light of the United States because we need a new fresh path forward.
Mhm.
Now, to your point exactly too, your Aquarius energy can also be fall in line. You know, everybody has to be this way and there is no room for dissension. And so, you know, there's a darker expression, but I have a very renewed sense of hope that we have now electrified the youth, and the youth and the women were what were needed to actually win this vote, and they were not electrified before.
Yes, and Uranus electrifies. Yeah, the day Joe Biden stepped down and endorsed her, Mercury was squaring Uranus, and he made an announcement, Mercury, that electrified Uranus, the people of the United States, Uranus squaring the moon of the United States. So yeah, we can really see that this fresh energy. And I was listening to something, and they're talking about the candidate with a positive message is the one who is most likely to win. Donald Trump doesn't say anything positive. It's all about, fire and
Here.
brimstone. Yeah.
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 And
She's
Aquarius is
talking
not
about
here.
positive change, going to the future, taking care of, working to eliminate childhood poverty and things like that, that can really get people excited.
Yeah. So, and I don't want comments that we're biased because clearly we're biased.
Yes.
And we're
Yes.
also giving you the astrological symbolism. And we're also telling you that it's not necessarily going to be an easy road ahead because there are a lot of people who, you know, think differently and they have a different perspective. And the reality is the former guy's chart doesn't look bad that day. but I'm looking at the future and I don't see him prevailing in the end. So even if the election is chaotic, even if there is shenanigans, whatever happens, there is kind of this momentum that people are not going to back down and be quiet and let this kind of just take over our lives.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I'm most energized about is like, okay, let's say we don't win. I was concerned there was just going to be apathy because the apathy would then lead to, having our freedoms and our rights continue to be taken away. So it's like it needs a fight. This
Well,
election
that's what Mars and Leo
fight,
is going to be. Mars and
right?
Leo is a fixed fire sign. People are going to be motivated and excited to stick it out. Like there's some places where they're going to be standing in line for 10 hours or whatever.
That's the
And
thing,
that's
right?
what Mars and Leo is going to give people that drive to not give up. Yeah, because
And
there
it's,
are
it's
going to be
in the
all
ninth
kinds of
house.
shenanigans.
Yeah, not, Mars in the ninth house is voting too, and so I do believe like where the momentum goes, we don't know all of the ups and downs of this roller coaster over the next 3 months because there are more. Like Celeste said, there are other things coming down the pike. So no one's saying like this is a done deal. I think that it's just really cool to look at the shift in energy and to have some renewed hope and excitement, given that we had one statistic I read was that she signed up over 100,000 voters over the weekend to be volunteers. And prior to that, the DNC only had about 300 people who signed up to be volunteers. I mean, that is
Wait,
staggering.
100,000? Yeah,
100,000
there on
people.
the day of that he stepped down and she and endorsed her, 44,000 Black women got on a call together, a Zoom call. They had to get the head of Zoom on the phone to expand it.
Wow.
And she raised over 100 million within 48 hours, I think, of announcing. There is so much
And
Mars
on that call, they
working
raised
together.
1.5 million, just that
Yes.
call alone.
Yeah, and then the next day there was a black man called, and then there was a white woman unite,
The
and now
white woman went us tonight,
there's
and
a
I'm
white
gonna
men
go.
uniting tonight, I think. So I mean the mobilization and the energy and the drive because we're not going back. I mean, I just feel like the winds are forward moving, not backwards going. Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that's why if someone was to say to me, you have to pick for no other reason than the Pluto and Aquarius momentum, I would say we've got Kamala as our next president if I had to pick. So, but
Yeah.
I am not a predictive astrologer.
I am, and I'm
Okay.
predicting she's going to win. Now, it would be nice to have her running mate. But I mean, it could go, it's a prediction. I could be wrong, but yeah, I had predicted that Trump was going to lose a while ago.
I love it.
I
Okay,
don't
so
see
you've
it.
heard it here. So everybody, we're gonna give Celeste major props. When it happens, we're all gonna like get on a Zoom call and we're gonna crack champagne and we're gonna like do a victory lap.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't happen, then don't talk to Celeste. Just don't give her, don't, just, don't be too mad at her.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's surprises coming that are gonna that are like what say what? So there a lot could change, but I'm thinking, yeah, I'm thinking it's just such enthusiasm. We're not letting what happened to Hillary happen to
No,
oh,
no. And we're not seeing that, right? Because Hillary had the same sort of like kind of thing where people weren't mobilizing behind her. They weren't excited. I read another piece, for those who know me, they know I worked in the media for over 20 years. And so I'm a news junkie, and I read an article that said this will be the first election since 1976 that didn't have a Biden, Bush, or a Clinton.
wow.
So that, Biden has only been in the running, but Biden's been running since the 80s in primaries, right? So, this will be the first one without a Biden, Bush, or a Clinton. And I think that that means something. It's like, yeah, it's a new dawning, it's a new age. One of the things I forgot to say when we had Kamala's chart up, and I didn't pull her progressed chart to show people, but I did want to make note that her progressed moon, her progress chart looks really strong, and it's trining Chiron. It's sextile. Her progress moon is trining Chiron, and it's sextiling Pluto for those of you that are astrologers, and it's sextiling Uranus. Her progress sun is sextiling Saturn on the midheaven. I mean, all sorts of really positive things. And I don't really do solar return charts, but I
Now,
watch.
I want to say something about her progressions.
All right,
Her
give it to me.
progressed moon on election day is at 14 degrees of Cancer. That is the degree of the fixed star Sirius, which is the brightest star besides the sun. It's life-giving. It's the Nile rises when Sirius rises. Yeah. And it's conjunct the sun of the United States. So her progressed moon is conjunct the sun of the United States on election day. That's another reason I think she's going to win.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been wonderful to get to know you a little bit and introduce you to all the people that watch this channel. And so, no matter what happens, there is a reason and a season for it all. And the universe is conspiring to help us. And we are optimistic, but we will get through whatever ends up
Yeah,
happening.
no matter what happens, we will get through it.
Yep.
And yeah, but it's really up to the people of the country. What do you want? So, yeah, what do you want? And
And
don't
really
sit this
listen to
one
the
out.
messages.
Don't sit this one out, is what
Don't
I would
sit this one
say.
out. Yeah. And I think there was a little bit of a danger of that before. So,
Yeah, I don't think that danger's gone. There is so much excitement and enthusiasm.
yeah,
And
if you want to catch a little of that enthusiasm too, definitely head over to Celeste's Instagram because she does lots of lives and it's really fun. And she has a YouTube channel as well. So, anyway, I am so grateful for your time and hopefully you'll come back again someday.
oh, thank you so much for having me, Dabney. It was so great to chat with you. And just letting people know I'm Astrology by Celeste everywhere. So on Instagram and here on YouTube at Astrology by Celeste. And my podcast is called Celestial Insights to help you navigate the energies of the week. And the Oprah retreat will be October 16th through 21st in Park City, Utah. You can come and learn all about the moon with me.
That's amazing. I'm going to be there too. So I'm not fancy and leading anything. I'm actually taking a course.
You're going to be there.
I'm gonna be
Wonderful.
there. Yeah, no, I'm getting back on the horse. So I'm gonna be riding with Ann Ortley on this one, but I'm excited. We're gonna have to have a meal or something while we're there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So everybody come and sign up for Celeste's course because I can tell it's gonna be awesome.
It
So
is.
bye, stargazers.